a professional setup.
Oh, thank you. We tried very hard. I even lit candles.
Yeah, they look nice. You did.
Yeah, look, it looks nice in here. Flowers.
Wow.
So Emily, most people are going to know you from playing with Phoebe, but your resume, you have quite the resume.
I play with Phoebe Bridgers mostly. Every incarnation of her side projects. So I played with Better Oblivion, Community Center, and I played with Boy Genius. I played with Kim Gordon, Lizzie McAlpine, Fiona Apple, Shirley Manson, Rosalind.
Damn.
Death Valley Girl.
Oh shit.
Entrance.
Damn.
So the question should have been, who have you not played with?
Kind of. It's funny, I forget sometimes. I've been really lucky. I played with a lot of great people.
Is it when you get those gigs, is it like because LA, I think more than anywhere, is like I ran into somebody at a coffee shop and they forgot I was here and they were like, hey, I need a bass player for this thing.
I always say it's cowboy country because it's like I get all of my gigs through text message.
That's actually amazing.
Like, hey, I got your number from
Yeah.
Literally, like I got the Kim Gordon gig. It was like, hey, do you want to play bass with Kim Gordon? And I was like, what?
Like, first of all, who is this?
Yeah.
Well, I was like, yeah, I'm not that number. And I was like, doesn't she play bass? Is this a joke?
Yeah, right.
I feel like that's a dangerous thing to do nowadays too, because you're like, is this a spam text or
like you don't respond,
or you don't pick the phone call up? Yeah.
Very niche spam if that's what they're sending.
Right. Yeah.
I would just hit it. Yeah, I would not answer. Unknown number, I hit ignore all day for sure.
How was it playing bass for like arguably like one of the most iconic bass players?
Oh, amazing. I mean, also like intimidating as hell. But it was really, really fun. I mean, I feel like I was kind of like born to play that kind of music. So that was, a really fun time. It was also like as the pandemic happened. So it was an interesting time.
Was she like, she obviously recorded all those parts herself, right? I would assume.
I believe so, yeah.
Like, so did she have to teach you? Like,
no, usually what
happens, hell yeah.
You have like rehearsals before like a singer comes in because like they don't need to be there while like the band is kind of figuring stuff out. And you should be going into a rehearsal being able to play this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, knowing it, yeah.
Right. Yeah, if she was teaching me, I don't know if I would last a day. But no, but it was interesting. There were some parts that like I guess call for like more playing than what's on a record sometimes.
Right.
And she was like, do it kind of like, like this or like that, or I like what you're doing there, or like the bass. She was like, the first day she was like, the bass sounds great. And I was like, oh.
Like, actually, hold on. Can you do that into the microphone?
Record it. Record it.
I was like, why am I crying? Yeah, no. But yeah, there are moments like that where like there's feedback that's happening and sort of like I guess, I don't know, not a teaching me the bass lines, but
positive feedback.
That kind of feedback is better than that's not how you play that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that would be devastating.
That all day. Yeah.
Well, of those people that Jordan mentioned, who was the first? Like, what allowed you to break professionally? Was it Phoebe starting out, or did you play with somebody else?
No, I was. It's like it's kind of a crazy story because it's a very butterfly effect thing that actually happened. I don't know. I'm like, how much time do you have? But
we have an hour.
We love crazy stories.
I answered a Craigslist. I answered a Craigslist post looking for a guitarist. Funnily enough, I believe for like this kind of like desert rock band, and I was playing in this band with this singer Kate Clover, who's still around. She's doing really well with like her solo project, and the drummer Haley Brennell, who now plays with Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh, crazy.
Wow. We played in that band together. And I was on like musicians in LA and I saw like someone was looking for a cajon player and I tagged her in it. She got the cajon gig. And then they were looking for someone to play guitar and bass. And she was like, I'm playing with this artist, Do Perot. They're looking for a guitarist that can play bass. And I was like, I guess I can lug around 2 amps and 2 guitars. I just moved here. And so we were playing in those 2 bands together at the same time. So it was a nice little like rhythm section kind of happening. And she had to sub out a gig, the last Do Perot gig I think we ever played maybe. And Reese Hastings, also a drummer. This is a very drummer story actually. So this is good
That's
for you
great.
guys.
That's
perfect.
great. Yeah.
Reese Hastings subbed in, and he was actually, I think he knew Phoebe's manager, and so when actually I'm missing a step. Sorry.
No, do it.
In the Dope Power thing, the keyboard player was musical director of A Show with Fiona Apple and Shirley Manson, and I was like, "Who's playing bass?" She's like, "We don't have one." I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "We have an orchestra, all female, but there's like a real, like there's a rock drummer." And I was like, "No bassist? That's crazy."
that's
And I was like,
crazy.
"You should let me play bass."
Did
And
you
she
feel
was
like you were
right.
living in an alternate
Yeah,
reality?
that
This
is.
is crazy.
Yeah, so I was like the last person added to this like one-off like orchestral production of like Shirley Manson and Fiona Apple playing like
Wow.
most of the songs.
That's crazy.
And then kind of like from that, then Reese subbed in on the last Dope Horror thing, and I guess he knew Phoebe's manager, and when they were like, "We're looking for a bass player," the story I was told is they asked 2 people, and the 2 people recommended me, and one of those was Reese, and and then that's kind of how I ended up in that band, was all through a weird cycle of Craigslist drummers, and
That's
you
wild.
That's crazy.
Asking the right question. Do they have a bass player? That's perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, if not, why not?
It
Yeah,
should be
of
said
course.
though, when you started playing with Phoebe, you weren't like open. That was not like Taylor Swift days. That was like,
No, oh my god, no.
Yeah, I was about to say, what was the timeline of all this? Like, when did that start? Like Craigslist, what year was that?
Oh, I feel like I thought I knew when I moved here, but I was like, I think it's around like 2018. I think that's when it was. But Phoebe had already released the first record, and it was a bit of a slow burn. They had been touring that, I believe, for a few months already. And I came in kind of early-ish on that tour. And I think we had one practice, went on tour for what seemed like kind of the next 6 years.
yeah.
That's wild.
And we like, I still remember, I was like, we played a show in like, I feel like somewhere in Idaho to like 50 people. And my first show was like a festival. I think that Connor sang with us as well. But it was like crazy because it wasn't like, huge venues. We still had like a lot of like festival kind of like slots and things like that, but it was very, very early on. We still did a tour in like her Prius.
Nice.
At
Yeah.
one point.
Wow.
I was gonna say because we met when I met you for the first time. That was still like, I think that was at, like the
early.
Crocodile in Seattle. I mean, that was like
Exactly, which was like kind of the
a
end
couple
of that
hundred people
tour.
there, like not a big show.
Wow.
I just replayed the new Crocodile, which is funny. That the old Crocodile, that was one of the hottest gigs, I think.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
and we were in
That
suits.
venue's so hot.
Actually, the original version of that was the one that you guys played. That's the second. The new one's the third location.
Oh,
The first location was in the same building as the second, but they like basically gutted it and rebuilt it into what it was then. But the original one, it was still open, and that's where like Nirvana played and Pearl Jam. And at the original room, I saw like 1 or 2 shows there, and it was a corner stage as high as that room, but there was a giant pole in the center of the stage.
yeah.
So you go to see a band play and they have a singer and the singer's like hugging a pole the whole time. Or if you get stuck behind it, you're like, I can only see the bass player. Like that's all I can see.
That's like trees, right? In
Yeah,
Dallas or whatever.
similar.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
similar.
Yes.
Crazy. Well, it's crazy. I didn't even think that's how long I've known you. It's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. Well, you also, there was like the COVID break there isn't like real time. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
deleted.
yeah, it's deleted time.
I
so.
still can't figure out that time.
I miss it.
I kind of miss it too, honestly. Yeah.
Were you doing remote sessions and stuff during that, or
Yeah. Oh my God. I was teaching remote. I was doing remote sessions. I was like so productive. I was like jogging every day. Like I was, it was.
How would that go? Would somebody just, I guess, email you and then, like, what was your setup? You just did it from your room or wherever, or did you
Like Zoom?
Yes, Zoom.
Well, because I'm thinking like who, like quality wise too, like what's the setup for something like that to play like a bass that would eventually go on a song or something like that, you know?
Or like recording. I mean, I have like a home recording set up with like keeping an Apogee and things like that. Like that was kind of just what I was doing. Teaching's, I mean, that's a little different.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever done remote sessions where like the producer is on a Zoom call with you while you're
like
tracking?
that kind of stuff. No.
No, it's funny. Everyone's been like very do whatever you want a lot of the time. Like
That's
there's like
sick.
stuff,
That's
but
awesome.
they're just kind of like, I need it by this date, like send it back. which has been cool. I wouldn't mind doing like the on Zoom stuff, or like we've gotten together and like spoken before, and like played some inspiration stuff and talked through stuff, but yeah, not while I'm doing it.
Have you ever, I've had some friends get calls to play on stuff where they didn't know what it was. They were just like, here's the vibe or whatever. And it ends up being like a massive pop hit. Have you ever had that
Oh, really?
happen? Yeah,
I played on a Grease musical thing.
Whoa.
I can't remember what it was.
That's
I don't remember, from like a hotel in like Copenhagen.
That's so
I
crazy.
don't remember. I
That's
don't even
so
remember.
sick.
I know so little. I remember so little about it. I don't even remember what else, or even if it came out. I can't remember.
I just watched a interview with Josh Freese, and they ask him if he's played, because he's played on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. And he's like, actually, recently I was at the grocery store, and he's like, I found myself drumming. He's like, wait, I know this song. What is this song?
He's played on it.
And then it was he was like, oh shit, I played on this. You're just
Question. So you mentioned before, like, did you start with guitar and then move to bass, or did you like start with bass and could you play other stuff, or is it mainly just, like where how did it kind of start for you to get into what you do now?
I guess my mom put me in piano lessons as a kid, and when I
We're
kind
just
of
talking about the piano.
yeah, by the time I got to being a teenager, I was like, piano's not cool.
see, guys, hard to be cool playing keyboard.
And so I like begged. I had to like bargain with my father about stopping piano lessons, and he was like, only if you keep playing an instrument. He plays a little bit of guitar, so I was like, guitar. And then when I wanted to start a band with my friends, it was like 3 guitarists, and I was
You got to play bass.
I had to surrender and play bass.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Do you I mean, obviously you like playing bass, but like now you started with guitar or whatever, you play a bunch of stuff, but are you like, I'm a bass player? Like you consider yourself?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like, I think I'm even like all the bands that I listened to, all the people that, I mean, and there was like usually one woman in the band who was the bass player. And I was like, I do like this thing.
Why is that a trope? Why is that a thing? It's like,
I don't know. But in the 90s, it was kind of a thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was what I was listening to. So it was funny. I was just always kind of like drawn to that. And I wanted drums as a kid, and my parents were like, absolutely no way.
Yeah.
It was like the closest thing I could get without having to lug a drum kit around. But yeah, I think from the moment I started playing bass, I never really wanted to be a guitarist in a band again.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Before we started recording, you mentioned having an electronic drum kit. Do you play a lot today, or what exactly is your experience with drums?
No, I was playing in, I guess, like an indie pop thing with a friend named Emily, who's like an amazing musician, singer, Emily Smart. And she and her partner had like this 80s electronic kind of like band, and they were going on tour, and we want to put electronic drums on tour. Do you think you'd learn it? And I was like, yeah, how hard could it be?
How'd you do?
That's true.
Great. I did great. It was, I mean, there's like, it's not me sitting at a drum kit, like, but it's like, a little bit of kind of just like snares and cymbals kind of stuff.
That's all you need.
It was, and glow up sticks. That was, you had to,
Yeah.
It was honestly, because those two are like such sweethearts. That was like one of the funnest little kind of like runs I remember doing.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Good. Do you still have this kit?
It was their kit.
Oh, okay, got it.
It was their kit. I had to learn on, so I couldn't even like, I think I took it home to learn on it.
You gotta give it back.
Yeah,
And the
you're like,
sticks?
I need that
I need
back.
to give back the sticks. Oh.
Yeah.
So you didn't like it enough to say, I need my own, huh?
No, it's expensive.
It's too expensive.
It is expensive.
Yeah.
It is too
And
expensive.
Let's be honest. It is the worst instrument. We all
Yeah.
know it. Drums are the worst.
I don't know. I always find myself kind of like drawn to drums, but like watching a good drummer and then sitting at a drum kit are like miles apart.
Well, that's actually a good.
Yeah,
Your career is like session touring based. I mean, you're a member of Phoebe's band or whatever, but like all of us came up playing in a band. Like we learned to play in a band. You've played with a bunch of different drummers. Like, how is it odd to, meet a random person at some warehouse space and try and be like, we have 3 days to like mesh and be a rhythm section.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a skill. That's a skill that like it takes me a long time to like
Lock
join
in.
up with a band and feel like I'm part of the music and not just like playing on top of it.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Some people, I feel like that happens quite naturally, really quickly. And other people, I feel like it's a little bit more of a fight. But I mean, I grew up playing in punk bands. That's kind of how I got my start to begin with. So I kind of grew up playing to the same drummer all the time. And like now, like, you know, I played more gigs with Marshall War than kind of anybody.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's true.
So I would say him and I are like
locked in.
Yeah, it's like we have like a very like fun little thing. But yeah, sometimes playing with other people is like can be a little bit of a thing. But I remember like playing with like Sterling Laws, who played with Kim when I was playing with Kim. I felt like that was like we matched straight away.
Do you feel like, and we were talking about this, I don't know, and I'm just curious, like, do you think you could pinpoint what that is? Like, obviously, like, good drummer, you know, say like, oh, this drummer is really good. Do you find that it's like, you know, because obviously different drummers have so many different styles in the sense of like some play like behind the beat, some kind of play like on top, or always feel like they're, you know, not rushing, but, you know, there's that, even though there's a click or even though there's a tempo, drummers, you know, flow and fluctuate within that. Have you found that like you lock in more with a specific type of drummer?
Yeah, I think Sterling and I are both huge Pumpkins fans, so I wondered whether that maybe that played a little thing into it. But
yeah,
it's funny. I feel like with Marshall, he kind of came from a punkish kind of background too, and now he's in this like, you know, indie kind of singer-songwriter, more kind of like laid back world. And I think it's just like we've played so much together that I think it's just like I know him.
Yeah. Like your brains connect.
Right.
Yeah, that's sick.
I know him. Our
That's
brains
cool.
connect. I'm like, I watch him. Like, I kind of like love watching him when I play. Like, it's either like the back of Phoebe's head or like
him. Yeah.
Or yeah.
Like I'm looking
That's
at her
cool.
hand move most of the time. But yeah, I think it's just like when it's almost like you get a sense of like who someone is, where like you're finishing someone's sentence. I feel like with us, I'm like, I know how he moves.
That's sick.
That's
so
that's
we actually
crazy.
played like I think the Better Oblivion tour. We had 3 drummers on.
Oh wow!
And so that was crazy for me.
Like switching out.
Why was there a reason why, or just like
there was reasons why.
But we can't talk about it.
I'm under NDA. I'm not allowed to say it with
and some of it's like availability and things like that. And Marshall ended up being on like as the 3rd drummer.
But then you were like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A completely different context. It was like Marshall in like a more rockier version. We also locked in kind of so well on that. It was just funny. But like it was kind of like, oh, I know how that is. But it's interesting playing with like, different, even that, like different drummers on the same project. It's like,
that's got to be unique for sure. Just to like play the same songs, but like, again, drums are so distinct on each person. So it really would be such a like, you know, you just never know what you're going to get until you play with them. So yeah, that's cool.
I mean, bass is the same way though, too. I feel like when you play with different bass players, it's the same. It's the opposite, I guess. You know, you sort of, everyone has their feel. You know, it's with a drummer, like a drummer can play, we can all play the same drum beat, but it's going to sound completely different, you know, so that.
And I always think I play bass like a guitarist. So I'm like, that in itself, sometimes I'm like,
sure.
Again.
Yeah.
But no, sometimes, it's a little harder, but there are sometimes you just kind of click with people.
Are you holding out for the Pumpkins gig? Or are you going to get that gig at some point? Nate toured with Pumpkins.
We did,
really?
in 2012.
My friend Jack plays with them, so I'm not trying to steal his gig.
He plays bass. He plays bass, or is it
he
just?
Plays bass. I'm very happy where I am. But no, it's funny. It's the thing where it's like you don't necessarily just because you like something. It's like I don't want to be someone whose music I love.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, and I'm a musician. It's like I don't need the allure taken away by those kinds of things. And sometimes it's like I don't think I would want to play bass in some of the bands like that. Like I feel like the bands that I want to play bass, like if I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to play in that band, it's not necessarily like who I grew up listening to when I was 15.
I fully feel that. I think about that all the time. I think some of my favorite bands, I'm like, I don't think I'd want to play drums in. You know what I mean? Like I think the stuff that I would want to play in is stuff that I'm almost like not into as much. You know, we've talked about that, right, Jordan? you're like,
Oh,
yo,
yeah,
I would love to play in a band that's like this style. But my favorite bands, I feel like most of my favorite bands I couldn't play anyway. I'm like, I don't even know how the fuck they did that. You know what I mean? I'm like,
well, it's also,
I think
you're
that's why
sort of like, I like the person that plays in that band.
that's
in that
what I'm
position.
saying.
Why
It's
would
like,
I
you
want
don't want to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you like how they play. So you're not,
Right. I mean, I always joke that like, I don't listen to Nickelback, but I would take that drum gig in a heart.
Oh yeah.
I
Like,
listen to
just the
Nickelback.
I listen to
easiest-
Nickelback and I would take
That
it.
would be
Me
sick.
too, dude.
easy parts, really fun, just hit hard. Like it's,
Is it easy though? I haven't listened
some
to
of it's
Nickelback
really
and
complicated.
yeah.
Actually, what's that dude? That one guy that played on that a couple of those records is like
He's pretty good.
yeah, he's insane. Yeah, but it's they like that's just that kind of or like country stuff. It's like
Be
Right.
fun to
You
play.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
fun to play because it's straight ahead. It's all about feel. It's not like the more simple you play in that genre, the like it's better for the song. There's no
Right.
pretension in a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff. It's just
Yeah.
like that's what I would want to if I was going to pick. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, like the new Kim Gordon album is pretty interesting. It's like different, you know.
Hmm.
And was it weird? Like the bass? I mean, is the bass different than maybe say obviously like Phoebe or whatever? But
My
like
friend Camilla is on that tour now. Phoebe got too busy. I had to give that one up. But but like as you know, even with Phoebe's stuff, honestly, like from the first record to the second record, you know, and even live, she made this joke where it's like, I wish you could like tour an album for like a year before you put it out because it changes so much live because
Mhm.
her albums and I went back and had to listen to Stranger in the Alps, and I was like, oh, it's so different than how we
Yeah,
play it.
Play it
Yeah.
live. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, because things like evolve, or like you're, day 75 of tour, like you do something different and forget how, something evolves into something else. But
Also, things just sometimes don't translate. Like,
yeah, that's
Yeah, you
true.
gotta
it's great on the
gotta
record,
change it
but
up
like when
live.
it's in the room, you're sort of like, oh, we need to like rock this out more, or like whatever.
yeah, like the Punisher record is kind of a little bit more upbeat, bass wise than the first one. The first one didn't even really have a lot of bass on it. So there were like bass lines created for live, that don't exist on like the records and things like that. So it's even interesting seeing that where like, yeah, it's kind of like evolved.
I love that album. That new Kim Gordon album's cool.
Oh yeah, it's so good live too. I went to the show;
Yeah.
it was amazing, and amazing. I mean, amazing drummer, amazing bass player. But yeah, the beats on that are kind of sick.
Yeah.
You talked about how you've meshed with certain drummers. Are there any drummer pet peeves that you have?
Ooh, that's a good
Don't
one.
name any names.
Yeah,
obviously.
no, I was going to say, you
Yeah,
have
you
to
don't
name
have
names.
to you could just habits
I remember
or
having
things.
a conversation with, this is like pre-America, I'll say that so that no one thinks that I'm talking about them, where like someone was always going for a fill and would never make it.
Oh,
And
that's
I was
my
like,
favorite.
Dude. That's kind of like one of them, because it's like if we're off, usually it sounds like it's me, even if it's them. But
For sure.
yeah, that's kind of like one. I'm like, don't do the fill if you can't make the fill.
Yeah.
Always land on the one.
Little
Yeah.
land on the one.
Always
It's a good thing to aspire
land
for.
on the one.
Land on
I
the
hate
one.
playing over the one.
Oh my god! Honestly, the only other thing that is kind of like a peeve that I would never say out loud to anybody, because I'm a bass player, I'm not a singer, is that a drummer who can't drum to the room. Like if you're in a room or a stage where you're just going full throttle the entire time and kind of like sacrificing what I feel like is probably like tone and timing, and the room does not need that, and blowing out the speakers, that is like a huge pet peeve.
No, that's a good point, because you've played all sorts of venues and arenas and everything
Yeah.
else. And I know for drummers, at least in my own experience, I've never played an arena, by the way, but I know that you should dial it back in certain ways, and there's just ways to play in a certain room. Is that the same case for bass?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's the sound
Yeah.
job, I think, is like to kind of like limit that. But I think it depends on like the genre and what you're playing, of like what your approach to that instrument is. Like you're not always going to be like kind of attacking it if it doesn't call for that. But yeah, like being next to a drummer who's like trying to break a snare is like not my in a rehearsal room that's like this.
That makes sense.
Nate's on the call.
All right,
You don't have
guys.
to
All right, guys. All right, guys. Just go ahead and call me out by name. My whole
on your own
career,
podcast.
my whole career from 17 till 25. That was me. I'll admit it.
I'm like,
I've changed.
in the rehearsal room, I don't want to have to like.
No, I mean, I will say, like, I hit harder, or like, and I have, and back in the day within the genre that I played, that was like, my goal wasn't to like, oh, let me blow out the speakers, but I was like, how can I hit as hard as I can? How can I like be as like noticeable as I can? So I did do that a lot, but I will say that is part of my pet peeve, because I'll watch drummers and
I think that's a genre thing too. It's like if I go see a hardcore band, I want them, if it's at a VFW hall, they better be fucking bringing.
Yeah.
Like I don't want, like they're going to need to repaint this place when this band is done.
I think that makes sense. I think it's more when it's like not a hardcore band and
play to that, like you said, what band it is, play to that genre. And I think that, you know, as I've matured, I for sure have landed in that. But back in the day, I was like, my only assignment was, how do I break shit?
I love that too, though. Honestly, yeah. If that calls for the type of band you're in, absolutely.
Well, it does sacrifice, like you said, it does sacrifice feel,
tone,
timing when you are overcompensating for, you know, playing hard stuff, you know.
If I'm recoiling every time you hit the snare, then maybe.
Yeah.
Recording for sure. I was about to say that was one thing. You know, drums sound different how hard you hit it. So it's like, especially recording, it's a big one. It's like,
I actually remember my first recording experience. I set my kid up and he was like talking to me about snare tone. And I was like, so do you want me to actually like hit the rim and the head at the same time? And he like looked at me like, he's like, are you fucking with me? And I was like, I didn't know. I didn't. I felt like that makes it sound more intense. And he's like, no, dude, I want you to strike the head of the drum. That's all I want you to do.
Wait, so you weren't hitting the rim?
I was hitting the rim and the head at the same time.
Yeah,
and
like you're supposed to play drums, you mean? Who are you playing for that you don't do that? That's actually wild to me, because I mean, obviously every band's different. And if I played, I don't know, you know, if I played in a band that was that genre, obviously you don't always hit the rim, but I'd say 95% of the time you would, right?
I don't even do it live anymore.
I mean, obviously our bands are punk, you know, heavy or whatever, but yeah, I don't know.
You mean like a rim shot?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like when you hit the snare, like if you're hitting the thing, like you're like not hitting
it's
the
like
rim.
What's that called? It's a snare stand.
Well, I mean, I get it. I mean, yeah. I mean, I always hit a rim shot. I mean, but I think that's a bad habit of mine. I think I'm bad at like.
I disagree, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, you producer, it's probably the same thing with bass. A producer is like, play it quieter, play it not as, you know, I don't know.
Studio is different. You do things in the studio that like you wouldn't do out on the stage.
What do you enjoy more? Oh, sorry.
I was just about to say that. I was just going to say, if you could kind of choose, would you studio or like touring, like playing live shows or recording in the studios? Like if you could pick one, what's the one that you kind of would gravitate toward?
I mean, I'm just grateful to play music that anyone ever wants to play music with me, but I'm always like, yay. I would say, I mean, I'm almost more predominantly a touring bass player, and I love live shows. I will say that. I love both, but I think like there's such a family element to being on tour. There's also this thing where it's like when you're on tour, you don't want to be on tour, and when you're not on tour,
you miss it. Yeah, 100%. So true.
But I think it's like, I like playing, and this is maybe crazy, I like playing the same songs every night, and that kind of like weird element of it, it's also kind of like what I know,
comforting
more. Yeah, it's like a warm embrace. But yeah, maybe playing shows, because like you play festivals. I like eating. Riders are fun. You get awesome. All those like fun little side quest adventures. I think we could.
What's your must-have rider item?
Coconut water.
Coconut water.
Is there a certain brand? Is there like a certain brand you like?
Isn't there only one?
Harmless, yeah. Well, what's the
Harmless Harvest?
Yeah, I guess I only know about that one.
I think I've only seen the one that's in like the cardboard box.
You don't specify; they'll put the other ones on there.
Yeah, what's the other one? What's the one that starts with a V? It's
Via Coco.
Yes, Via Coco. Yeah,
you know your coconut water.
That one sucks.
I'm not looking for sugar. I don't want
just coconut water.
Coconut.
Yeah. Do you like the one with the pieces in it?
I like that too. but I think the Harvest ones,
I love that one.
the ones with the pieces in it.
Yeah,
Don't
you can
open
get
it.
it has like coconut, the actual pieces inside
Yeah.
of it.
How big are the pieces? They're
They're not like it's not like
It's like pulp.
yeah,
Huge
little
chunks.
it's like little pulp.
It's
It's
choking
it's like-
hazard.
It's like boba tea, but
Yeah, it's
coconuts.
What's there's one, I'm trying to look it up, but there's one we had to start specifying on our writer to not buy a specific hummus. It was like this. It's the hummus that's at every
So it starts with an S. It's
Sabra.
it
Is it Sabra?
Sabra.
Oh God!
Everyone
Yeah.
what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
It's just
That
not.
is it.
It's,
You're so bougie now. You like have to have handmade hummus.
no, that it's.
I'm with Jordan on that one, honestly.
It's hummus, and we'd always get gummy bears, but they're really weird about the
You
brand.
know, Black Forest.
Haribo.
No,
Mm.
Haribo or yeah.
Yeah,
Wait, you
a
know-
lot
you-
of time I feel like musicians have like weird eating habits because you're on the tour for so long, and it's like if you don't specify, and like I'm pretty I will say this, I'm annoyingly kind of health conscious as like a day to day, and so me eating something bad is kind of like a treat, but I don't
I was
want
going
to.
to say, didn't the last time I saw you in person was at a donut event? So I don't want to. I don't know.
A donut. Of
I had my own donut. This is different. I
You have your own donut?
I had my own donut. At Wild Air restaurant, they let me have my own
That's
donut.
sick. What is the donut? Now I must know.
Guava cheese. Guava cheese.
Holy
donut.
shit, that sounds so
Yeah,
good.
it's really good.
Every day it's a decision for me to not eat all the donuts. Every morning I wake up, I'm like, today I will not eat donuts.
Well, speaking of which, did you know hummus? You're only supposed to eat 2 tablespoons.
Yeah, I know, dude. If you start looking into like the actual what the correct amount of stuff is, you'll be like,
it's
this is
stupid.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
serving sizes are so dumb.
Peanut
It's
butter
like-
is two teaspoons or whatever. It's like
That's yeah.
2
no.
teaspoons
You eat
doesn't even
nuts,
cover.
it's like 4 almonds.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
Yeah,
right.
no,
Okay.
it's no. There's no way. There's no
Yeah.
way.
The
One
almond
handful
thing
is
is
like
true.
12.
I eat a ton of
Yeah.
almonds, but I overeat.
You're not
I guess.
supposed to.
Yeah.
What's going to
Apparently
happen
not.
if you eat too many almonds? What happens? You become too healthy. What's the deal?
Yeah, you get like kidney stones or whatever.
Yeah.
If
Really?
Reed's been eating
Yeah.
too many almonds, I'm going to start eating too many almonds. Look at
He
him.
looks pretty good. Actually,
Yeah, but Reed strikes me as a guy who drinks a lot of water.
Right.
do you
You
drink a
drink
lot of
a lot?
water?
I do
Yeah.
drink a lot of water,
I
not
chug
coconut
water.
water, but I try
I'm
to stay
like
hydrated.
I'm a 2 gallon a day dude.
You're a Stanley guy, huh?
So Emily, you're not an after show Domino's kind of.
I don't have sugar in my house. There's no refined sugar in this house. There's agave, and to
That's
the point
awesome.
if you're out touring all the time, it is so hard to be healthy just from the get go. So I feel
Yeah.
like I kind of
It's
go into
almost
an
impossible.
argument about this. I was like, let musicians have what they want.
Well, that's
Because
what I actually was
we
going
will
to
give you
say.
Domino's every night otherwise.
Yeah.
I was going to say
100%.
that's the thing. If you think about it, there's like the yellow M&Ms or whatever, that rider shit's that's stupid. But there's some things like I want this brand of hummus or this brand of coconut water. When you think about it, like I'm trying to do this with some longevity,
Of course.
and I don't want to that's a small thing to ask for.
Yeah.
I mean, my thing was I would always ask for like shower towels that were still in the packaging, because one time at a show, I got out of the shower, I put a towel on my face, and it was a used bar towel.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just like there are certain things where you're like, if I'm gonna have any sort of life
Yeah.
Yeah.
on the road, there's like certain things, like certain levels.
Also,
of
it's
things
like I don't want to explain that I don't want to eat gums and oils, and it's just easier for me to specify the brand.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Did you
If
grow
do-
up eating healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. So
Really?
I don't think I didn't have like a Big Mac until I think I was like 20 something.
Well,
But I mean, I still ate fries and things like that, but pretty healthy. And I think moving here is the standards of
It's
what
hard to
awful.
eat healthy in general in the state. Even the
What
health food
standards?
is bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero standards. It's brutal here.
Yeah. And I had some gut health issues once, and it really, really restricted what I could eat. And so I think from there I was like, all right, we gotta there's no additives in my oat milk. There's no
Yeah.
sugar. I'll still eat those things when I want, but that's on my decision.
Yeah,
No.
for sure.
for a day-to-day on somebody else's. Yeah. I think it's like, it becomes like, it's the one thing you can kind of control on tour. So people get pretty like.
That's so true. There's so many unknowns with tour. If you can have one constant, it does like give you peace to some sense of like knowing that you can control that. And you're like, I'm not gonna, it's funny if you look at a normal rider or like what's like the go-to, it is just all shit. It's like candy,
Coke and Jack Daniels and
like that. Ours is alcohol. It's like celery and cashews and like mango. But also it's like you're traveling so much. The moment I start eating unhealthily, I get sick. And it's like you have to turn up every night for 3 months at 9
play
p.m.
in front of people,
and be on your best peak physical. And it's like that can only happen if you're really like taking care of yourself. I think.
I am talking about health right now as I'm drinking wine at 4 o'clock.
Well, I was about to say the fun thing is to like be on the rider to be like, and we need 2 bottles of orange wine, and then like
what is orange wine?
Where do we buy that?
we actually I had Pet Nat on ours, and so it would be fun seeing who could figure that out.
Figure it out. We do that all the time. So once we started touring again, I did that too. I was like, you realize if you put, natural wine and you're not that specific, like you were saying before, they'll go out and they'll find something at pub or like a grocery store. It's like organic or like this will work. And you're like, it's not even close. And you feel pretentious, but you're also like, again, you're just trying to like.
I appreciate that they tried though.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not knocking it.
Nate does it. Nate doesn't appreciate it, but
okay. Ben. What I'm saying is it's like, and of course wine's not an important thing to your health on the rider, but
I would argue that the wine is important because like, again, your time is not your time and it's not like you get a weekend.
Right.
Yep.
So like if your one thing is like on roadie Friday, you like
100%.
wine,
Right.
then like, and that's
You
what's
want
going
it. Yeah.
Also, the other option is I go to the bar and buy 6 Coors Lights. So it's just better for everybody if it's wine and not,
yeah.
I
was sitting down with like a road case that is full of natural wine.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome. I'm building my current case to be able to hold my, because I'm very nerdy about like stems, so I make sure that I have like a case
every
that
stem you need. Yeah,
I just flew to Nashville for a show and I packed 2 stems and like a
what
wine.
What are you currently drinking in that? What's in that glass right now?
I'm drinking an orange wine. Skin Contact is from Portugal. It's like a Portuguese. I didn't drink this whole bottle, by the way. I'm showing you it's like almost empty. No,
for those who can't see it, there's less than a glass.
Nice. I appreciate that. I like if you have a thing that you like, I feel like there's no reason to not pretend that it's not going to make you happy.
It's comforting.
On that note, do you have a pretty like set routine every day on tour? Like you do the same, you get up, you stretch, you do, whatever.
I try to have one. I feel like working out is like a pretty big one. Like I usually get up pretty early and like try and like go to the gym, or like go for a walk depending on like where we are and what's going on. And then we actually got to this point where like we went sound checking, which was sick.
Whoa.
Oh, the dream.
Wow.
I hate sound
I don't know if I could.
I don't know either.
I just need to like everybody for 5 minutes. Let's just make. I would never mentally be able to trust that it was.
There's a rush to it. That's great.
Yeah. No, sound guy who's been with us before I was there, I think just like it was so dialed, we could just like in and play the show, and that was like a pretty great time because it's like then I was like, okay, I want to eat at this place.
Day.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have to break up your day at all.
Yeah. But I'm usually like, when I'm home, it's like wake up, Pilates, matcha at my desk at like 8 a.m.
That's awesome.
So you're not a coffee drinker?
No, I kind of stopped drinking it. Oh, when was it? Maybe like 2 years ago. I was like, I think I'm going to cut this out. I'll have one now and then if I'm at a diner, like some nice, terrible diner coffee. But in my day-to-day, it just kills your energy.
Yeah. I went decaf for a couple years, and the first, like there was one time I ordered a decaf and maybe the guy didn't hear me or whatever, but they definitely gave me a caffeinated coffee.
Oof, yeah.
And after not having caffeine at all for 2 years, I'm telling you can see through the goddamn walls.
It's like rocket fuel.
It's crazy what it does to you. It's like, you're like, I can hear my heart beat in the back of my neck.
Yeah.
You're just like, it's crazy.
I'm playing shows, like I don't like the kind of like anxiety and then the dip it gives you. So like I find like mantra is like a little bit more of a steady vibe. So
For sure.
Do you get nervous before shows still? We were talking about that earlier, but yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Is it more like when in the early days, like when I first met you and it's at the Crocodile, is that more nerve wracking or is it more nerve wracking opening for Taylor Swift?
No, it's more nerve wracking. I played a show in my hometown and it was like you looked out and in Adelaide and it was like my best friends, my sister, my old boss, because I used to work for the festival, my ex, like my bass teacher.
Just so nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like it's more nerve wracking to see the whites of people's eyes rather than just like a sea of heads. Like
I agree with that. I think
Someone I know, if your crush is in the audience, like no thank you.
yeah, game over.
Yeah.
Or game on.
yeah,
There you go.
Or you're like, I'm gonna break the snare drum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, someone you like is in the audience, the worst. But also like if your friends or like your peers are there, you know, if you're playing in LA in front of like all your homies, I do find it nerve wracking. I had a friend that owns a drum shop and he came to see us play in Boston and he kind of stood side stage and watched. And I was so nervous because I was like, I knew he wasn't like
judging you.
He's a friend, but it's like my friends will come see me play and they're like fucking off in the bar, or whatever. They're not even paying attention. Yeah. This dude was like watching me play. And I was like, yo, like,
not judging.
Look away.
I would feel that way about you guys. Whenever you guys came to see me play, you would be side stage and I would get very nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. Playing in LA is kind of, I think all your friends
you're like, why is Beck here? Like, just like, like just the random people that show up.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, an arena. I think that's kind of like, also that was at the end of like a very long tour for us. So
well, that's what I was at that point when you're not doing sound checks and you've been on the same album cycle for 2.5 years or whatever it is, do you have bad shows at that point, or does it all just kind of start to, you're just like, I've played, this song.
I would argue we never, like Phoebe doesn't really have a bad song because she in herself is so talented. Like she could get up and like in the encore, like she would do like, songs by herself and stuff like that, where it's like her with the guitar singing is
the version
that's
best,
some people's best,
right.
We'll hope for.
Yeah.
Like
it's the same with, there's like a bunch of guys like that where you're like, I'd rather just see you on a stool with like a,
like we all sit and watch her, like we're like, wow, this is amazing. Why does she even have us on stage? But I don't think we ever really have a bad show, but I think that like we definitely come off with some feel better than others, but we have this kind of joke again with our sound guy, Morgan, where like we disagree about when our better sounding shows are. And it's
always
like,
the case.
Yeah. It's like, if we're feeling it, he's like, it wasn't the best one. And if we're like, that sucked, it felt like there were like moments here and there. And he's like, dude, that was amazing. I'm like, really? That one?
So funny. Front of house. It's tough. Yeah. They're weird. They're a tough one.
He's always like, he's like, whatever you guys think is bad is great. So I think it's like, sometimes it's just like, you also have that thing. I feel like sometimes we always start with like the same song, which is the same tempo on a click. And sometimes you come in and you're like, this feels so fast.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're like, is this slower?
Is the whole set on a click?
Not the whole set. We never used to. This is like a new thing that we started doing on like the last run of this tour. But I think.
Are you guys on ears or is it usually floor monitors?
We're on ears, except for Harry. Harry's on floor and headphones. Sometimes he's on headphones for one song because I think he has to hear something. But we have songs where there is no click as well, or there's clicks in like parts that stop because Phoebe's so cinematic sometimes that it's like she will just stop and she is the cue, so it can't be really to a click for what's going on. But for the first 5 years, no click.
Wow. Do you prefer one or the other? Like if you could choose, like you're like, I'd rather have it flow, or would you rather be locked into a click?
I think a click just makes everyone play better, especially like someone's that far over, the stage.
Yeah, huge stages got to be tough.
Yeah,
it's really, really tough, and you kind of have to be on ears. I think, like playing shows locally and not doing ears, you just can never hear the bass. You can't hear bass, you can't hear your harmonies. It's just like
Yeah.
about it. So I'm pro ears and usually pro click, but I think it depends. There's times and places where like I don't think you necessarily need
Do you
it.
have the click like pretty high in your mix? As we always talk about this, like it's always like the conversation of like, is it the loudest thing? Is it like lower? Is like where it is, where does it land in your
mine? I feel like it's always like my bass is like here. Phoebe's voice, Phoebe's guitar are usually quite loud. The kick, and the click, and then everything else is kind of like down here.
Well, just so you know, these three guys don't like bass at all in their monitors.
I don't take bass in my ears.
I think that's fair enough. You're playing drums, like you're not playing to me, I think everyone's different. Like I don't have a lot of guitar sometimes in my mix. Like we have mixes for each song too, because it's all quite different. And sometimes maybe you have to have the cue from something and sometimes you don't, but
I will say cues in the click really changed the game for me. Like
we don't have that.
Oh my God. Cause I like I will lose myself in it sometimes. So if there's a break in a song and I'm like ringing it out, I'm like, wait, has it been 4 clicks? But having somebody go 1, 2, 3, like that's really helpful in those moments.
Where I think you need that because I'm like real, but other stuff like the Phoebe stuff.
It's crazy. We don't have that. We have click, but we don't have cues, which I wish.
I've never had cues either.
We have cues now, and it's game changing because I feel like I get out of we talked about earlier, like lowering the click and then having the cues. I just play better because I'm not like overthinking. It's funny because we all, like you said, we kind of not all of us, but grew up playing punk. I think it took me a bit to be okay with like doing that because I was like, oh, we're cheating,
right?
You know what I mean? In my brain, I was like, I can't do that. I should just know the song. And it was like we all kind of went through that internal debate with ourselves of like, is this okay to like do this? Is it a crutch? But it's a better show. Like the fans don't give a shit. They just want to see a good show. So it's like, for me, I can relax knowing, okay, this big pause, it's like a random 5 count. If it counts it off, I just play better and I don't have to overthink it. And then if it is in the count off, I come in wrong and then my whole show is screwed. You know what I mean? Like I can't recover. So it's like, I'd rather just have it in there. So Joey, our guitar player, he'll put random stuff in our ears. He'll be like, hey, like movie quotes.
Yeah, there was on that 2021 tour, there was like a vamp like from Lord of the Rings, like the intros coming out, like they're walking out on stage and it's like, tonight we control holla or whatever, and it's just like you can only hear it in your ears. It's just insane.
The bass tech and I have a line that's just us two, and we'll make jokes
to each other
together.
That's
where like there'll be jokes happening, but otherwise it's like if the song, but that's in between songs. If the song is happening, then absolutely nothing in that ear, please.
For sure.
I think the jokes otherwise, she would like leave stuff on my like pedal board and stuff like that, like a loaf of bread. And that would just come out. I'm like, a loaf of bread,
just sitting there.
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah, like
I always think it's weird when you make a record and then you go to play that live and you set up the click as the same tempo as it is on the record, but it feels so much slower in person than it does on the record.
Yes,
even though it's the same exact tempo.
That's
like the weirdest thing.
I don't know why it feels that way.
We changed. I feel like we changed some of those where it was like it just felt too slow, so you just
bump it up.
Is it just adrenaline? I mean, it has to be.
It's got to be.
Yeah, adrenaline.
And also, live sometimes you just want to be a bit more rock.
I agree.
Yeah.
Do you still use a lot of pedals? Like a lot of bands are switching over to like Fractal and Kemper, and like it switches on. Like our band switched over to where like they don't even hit a pedal anymore. It goes to a verse and their tone switches, and like a lot of people have different opinions on that too, with like the punk stuff and like more technology things go wrong, because it is true. It's like if something goes wrong, then we're even more screwed. But it's like I don't remember there being any more issues or less issues with when it was all manual before. But
it's funny. I had this conversation actually with my bass tech recently where she was like, well, everyone's like on Fractals. And I was like, I do love amps. I love standing in front of an amp. I love standing in front of an Ampeg. And I love pedals. Obviously live, I don't use that many because I'm a bass player, but I like the physicality of like that. And, sometimes it's nice when things don't really
go perfect,
plan. But I think if like something calls for it and, you're playing, like I played shows where they're like, it's DI and there's amps for looks, and things like that. If that's what makes sense, because everyone's kind of on like budgetary constraints. So like if flying gear is so expensive, then obviously like open to whatever the artist really wants. I think you have to be flexible. You can have your own preferences for sure. And I love buying guitar pedals more than I've maybe loved like like bass pedals. I own so many guitar pedals, but yeah, I like playing through amps, but I think if it's like, yeah, constraints are happening, then the fact that you can make it easier and fly with everything that you need in your case is an amazing place to be also, because it kind of cuts things out. Like amps are expensive, pedals are expensive, like
and tubes if something breaks, all that stuff. Yeah.
You can also just walk onto a festival stage in a backline cabinet and it sounds just like your stuff. Like it's
I
not,
like anything that takes away the classism of like buying gear. So that's nice. I like that it's more accessible for people.
The four of us were talking the other day about situations where you get hit up to fill in on drums for another band, and how much that gives us a lot of terror and just not having enough time to prepare. I feel like you're in a unique situation because you play with so many different artists, and I was curious, what's the shortest amount of notice that you've gotten to play with somebody on stage, and do you thrive on that, or do you wish you had more time to prep?
I feel like you always want more time. I feel like once it was like the less than 24 hours, I feel like that definitely happened to play a TV thing. But even it's funny. I feel like even when someone knows they're releasing an album or like something's coming up, they have something coming up, there's never enough time sometimes to rehearse because it's expensive, and it's like, okay, here's a week. So like the more the better. But yeah, I've definitely had situations where it was like, okay, can you come to rehearsal tomorrow and know these things? Or like, hey, we have one rehearsal. I just played a show in Central Park where like we had one rehearsal the night like before the show, and I got in late for like a plane delay.
Damn.
Oh man.
And so we only got like one rehearsal as a band, but I had time with this before that, but there were tracks. So you're learning the tracks and the cues, which is kind of like,
it's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's different. Yeah. From when you're on stage too, like when you're actually playing the show, it's no matter, you can rehearse as much as you want, but ultimately it's a different feeling, It
is kind of nice to play an instrument though, where you can get a little travel amp and plug in a set of headphones and still run through stuff like quietly in a corner. It's like hard to do that.
Yeah. I like notorious. I used to love running this set before playing the set. Love doing that. Like right before, like I'd always have like my bass on me on tour, so it would be in the dressing room and I would rehearse.
Just a full set before? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've done that once, not on a kit, but I've done that for a show I had to play. And I did the whole entire thing like in my ears, but just like air drumming. And it was like game changing. I was like, I wish I could do this every night.
I heard like St. Vincent, I think in an interview, she said she ran her whole set before playing it because she didn't want the first time that she was playing it to be in front of people. And I kind of agree with that a little bit. I don't think that's the case all the time, but I think I definitely Marshall has definitely given me shit about that before. Where he's like, he'll be like, you know what, why are you even running? I like warming up. I mean, if you're just sitting backstage anyway, you might as well be productive.
Yeah.
I have like imposter syndrome anyway, so I'm like, might as well like get some rehearsal in.
I have a source who told me you are forklift certified. Is that true? And what's the situation there?
I love this.
Who's your source?
Don't worry about it. Is it true?
It's funny because that became like a joke. I feel like it is. That stems from I only recently started driving a car, and because I work. So
you knew how to drive a forklift before a car.
I got my forklift license certified before I had my full driver's license.
That's amazing.
Why? What was the situation?
I was working in festivals and like production, and so
okay.
We did like boom lift, scissor lift. I don't even know what you guys call them here, like a cherry picker thing, and forklift, and that was part of it. And so it was so funny because I couldn't drive a car legally.
So on those Taylor Swift gigs, you're backstage at the arena and some guy's struggling. You're like, let me get up.
You're like, excuse me.
I'm sure it's expired by now, but I haven't had to do it in a very, very, very long time.
I picture you driving one just down the road, just like that.
You just put a license tag on a
What festival were you working for in Australia?
I've worked for most of the major ones that kind of existed at the time. So it's like Soundwave.
Big Day Out. Did you do Big Day Out?
Yeah. Rest in peace, Big Day Out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Falls Festival.
Soundwave is over too, right?
That's done. Yeah, because of the same reason.
I know.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Yeah.
So you're from Adelaide, you said?
I'm from South Australia. I'm from like this tiny 200-person town called Smoky Bay.
Okay.
But lived in Adelaide for some time, and that's like the main city in Australia.
I love. We've been to Australia like 12 times, I think, something like that.
Oh my god!
Yeah, Adelaide's like probably our favorite.
Oh,
we had
I love
a
Australia.
song.
Really cool
We had a
place.
song called Adelaide because that was like the first place we played in Australia, and then that was like we were tiny in the States. We'd play in front of like 100 people. And we went to Australia, and our first Adelaide show was like the first sold out show we'd ever have in America or anywhere else. So in Adelaide, and it was like 300 people, but to us it was like mind blowing.
What is the venue in Adelaide?
It's a
What's
small. Or maybe it was like 500 cap, but it was like it was the Gov. Holy shit, we played the Gov a bunch too since then.
I feel like the kind of like hardcore scene in Australia was like very popular.
Yeah.
They love that
Yeah.
there.
Do you see yourself going back to Australia, or do you like it in the States?
I love it there. I think it's beautiful. My friends, my family, like everyone's there, but it's like, I mean, LA's kind of been my home for the last 7 years and kind of where my career is. So I don't really see me like moving back there. It's a beautiful place to retire.
Yeah, the way touring's going these days, I can't imagine a band's like, we have the budget to fly you over from Australia.
It's such a
to
short flight, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
So you leave this week, and by the time you get here,
if I could like transport myself to see my family more than like 1 year, that'd be great. But and I do like, I think Adelaide has such a crazy like arts history and like great scene. There's some really amazing like people there that are like very progressive and like what they're doing, but it just doesn't make sense, sadly, for me.
All right.
Well, enjoy LA. Thanks for
full
Thank you
hour.
for doing
Thank
this.
you so much.
Yeah, seriously.
So fun.
We'll see you in New York.
Yeah, I know. I'm literally in New York on Wednesday, so
Better bring an air conditioner.
Bring a full air conditioner.
Just check an AC unit. Yeah.
Use those Delta miles to bring a full window unit with you and check it onto the plane.
well, they've ruined it now. Now it's like they don't even care how much you fly. It's just how much money.
I know.
Exactly.
it's
It's
so
the
true.
worst.
All right, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Enjoy
Yeah.
your weekend. I mean, you're drinking already, so
I've already enjoyed my weekend.
I'm jealous.
It's almost 5:00.
Yeah,
It's 10 a.m. somewhere.
right. We could all learn from Nate. I think.
That's true.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
thank
We'll see
you.
you later.